Hello and welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be talking about how Kate and I joined up forces with a rescue and all of the stories that come along with that.
Me and Sophie quite often look around the websites to do with rehoming and adoption and fostering, hence how we got Scrabble and Malfoy, which if you haven't already watched the video, go watch that video. Then we came across these rescue, adoption hamsters in Durham, and they all from the same rescue, and they kept popping up on our searches over and over again. So we looked into them a little bit. We found their Facebook page, etc, etc.
Found them on TikTok.
They came on our TikTok live. And we thought, you know what, we really love hamsters. Probably a bit too much. But we really love hamsters, so why not foster? Because we can't have any more permanent hamsters. But we really want to help. So we got in contact and we became a foster home for the Happy Hamsters UK at York. So we became the York branch of Happy Hamsters. So
yeah. And Happy Hamsters basically was started by 2 volunteers up in Durham, and they quickly increased their team to, I think it was around 5 volunteers within the sort of Durham and Newcastle area, and now they've spread further down the northeast to York, which is us, and hopefully we'll be able to expand more in the future. But for now we are loving teaming up with them, and we've already got quite a lot of stories from it, so it's been a journey. So our first official rescue as a part of Happy Hamsters UK was a little hamster called Theo.
Yep.
So we found Theo while scrolling through Pets for Homes, and he was sadly in a tiny little pink Spielos cage, which has hardly any floor space. It looked like he didn't have much enrichment at all, not even a wheel, and we felt really bad for him.
He literally had a tube, this neon tube that came with him, and there was just a food bowl. That was it. Literally.
And the hide thing that comes in the cage. Yeah. So that really wasn't great. So we felt for the little guy, and the ad said that basically the kid didn't play with him and stuff like that, and we thought, you know what, this could be our perfect first rescue. So we got in touch, and he was listed as a Russian dwarf hamster. So we got in touch. The woman was happy to part with him for free. She was like, he just surrender him to us. And we got everything sorted out, set up. She filled out the paperwork and everything, and off we went to collect the little boy.
So we drove to go collect him, and we turned up at this house, and she brings down the cage, and she basically starts to explain how she didn't exactly know what hamster it was that they had. She was like, it's one of those Russian ones, and we were like, well, which one? Not bothering, we didn't mind, and she went, the Roborovsky one, and we were like, the what? And then Sophie was like, well, it's a Roborovsky then, you mean? And she was like, yeah, that's the one, that's the one,
the smallest one.
And we're thinking,
oh god,
oh dear.
Because we had a hamster heaven set up at home as a foster cage, which as a lot of experienced hamster owners would know, has a sort of 1.2 centimetre bar spacing, which is a little bit large, as a Roborovsky hamster shouldn't have more than a 0.7 centimetre bar spacing. So, we're like, we'll still take him, obviously, but, we started freaking out a little bit and panicking about where he was going to go.
She's explaining how he's really small, he's really jumpy. We're like, so how old is he? And they were like, well, we got him at 4 weeks old. And we're like, but you've only had him for 3 weeks, something like that. So he was about 7 or 8 weeks when we picked him up, wasn't he? And bless him, he was such a tiny little hamster, he has to be the smallest one we've seen by far. And He is jumpy, he's fast, like, we managed to get him into the travel cage, which was, like, so good in the first start. I think we woke him up, so he didn't quite have enough together in his head to be like, oh my god, like, ooh. So we managed to get him in there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So we then had a Roborovsky in our care.
Yeah, but the crazier thing is as well is that the actual sort of story of them getting him, so just to tell his little story from their perspective, was not only that he was 4 weeks old, but also that the pets at home that sold him to them sold him as an alternative to a Syrian hamster. Now, a Syrian hamster is mostly what we have, apart from Puzzle, obviously, in our care. They're the biggest type of hamster. They are a bit slower. They are a bit calmer. They're more recommended for children because they're a bit
because
bigger.
Of their nature,
yeah,
really,
and they're chill. So, you know, but they're also quite fun and friendly animals. She had had a Syrian before, so she knew what she wanted. So she went in and she asked for a Syrian hamster. She'd never had a Russian dwarf and she'd never had a Roborovsky. So when they said to her, oh no, Robo's exactly what you want. This is the hamster for you because it's for a child and it's a really small hamster and it's really fast and it's fun and energetic. You know, she's of course going to believe them. You know, not knowing
much about hamster and the hamster species and you know, anything else to do with hamsters other than the fact that her child wanted one. Like,
exactly. And the fact is that, like, they sold it as the alternative to a Syrian, which any hamster owner will know is the complete opposite. Roborovsky's, like we said, he's jumpy, he's fast, but that is within a Robo's nature. They don't like to come out. They can, you know, take food and go and burrow away for like a few days at a time. They don't tend to like to socialise very much because they are the smallest species of hamster that is domesticated. But yeah, so Theo being sold to them as kind of an alternative for a Syrian is a really bad thing because basically Syrians are this, you know, slow, easygoing species of hamster that, you know, are fun and friendly. Whereas Roborovskys tend to take their food, burrow away for a few days at a time. You won't see them for up to 2 to 3 days, and then they come out again and socialise. But they often just want to run on their wheel, run around their cage. They just want lots of floor space. They do zoomies. They're tiny and fast. They want to go in and out of things and all over the place, and they need loads of sand and stuff. And that's what they are, you know, they are essentially sort of very fine animals to be left alone. They don't need human interaction. And while Syrians don't either, they're more likely to want it than a Robo. So, you know, that's why it was absolutely ridiculous to us that they had sold him instead of a Syrian, but we think that was because they only had the Robos in that day and they just wanted to make a quick sale, which is terrible.
Yeah, and it happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You can't, But this poor woman was just like, we just don't know what to do with him. Like, he's so tiny.
He'd escaped from them.
Yeah, he did. He'd been, and we think to the kids, like, knowledge, like, the kid was just bringing, like, essentially grabbing the hamster out of the cage and bringing him out to play with, which any young kid would do. I mean, I don't think she was young. She was, like, early teens, something like that. I don't think she was that young.
No.
But the kid was just bringing her out, like, her hamster, the Roborovsky, out to play because she'd had one before and that's what they did.
Yeah. And
she didn't understand that you couldn't do that with a Roborovsky and that they had a completely different taming process and a longer one and all that sort of stuff. So she felt really bad.
Like, some Robos can never be fully tame, and that's something that she probably just didn't understand. So yeah, so the woman felt terrible.
But she also felt terrible about the cage. We told her how we had the Savic Plazas for the boys and stuff like that, and I was like, it's big, like, metre by 50, it's quite decent size. And she was like, really? Oh my god, I feel so bad, I didn't even know. Like, and this is, the miseducation of new hamster owners and how much they believe what they're told in pet stores is true.
Definitely. I think that it's, it's part and parcel with the fact that these, pet shops tell you the things that are safe for hamsters. but they don't talk about how they can thrive. They don't talk about how they'll be best placed and how they'll, you know, best get on with life. Because even though a Roborovski, yes, it can live safely in a Savick Spielos, but just because it can be safe and alive doesn't mean it's, you know, thriving. It doesn't mean it's having a great life. And the child had removed the wheel, which is like a really basic thing that a hamster needs, regardless of any other enrichment. They need a wheel because they can run up to 4 to 5 hours at night. So the fact that he hadn't had a wheel for however long, she couldn't even find it in her bedroom because she just chucked it out because it was making too much noise at night. So Theo came home with us that night. Oh, let's take a wee pin.
Do you want to pass him here?
Just disclaimer, this is not Theo.
Yeah. Come here.
Disclaimer, not Theo, right? So Theo came home with us that night, and, you know, for the next couple of nights we spent some time sort of trying to tame him a little bit in the playpen, which didn't seem completely impossible. He was just nervous and things. He loved going in and out of tubes and stuff.
He came up to me a few times, didn't he?
Yeah. And, you know, it was obvious that it wouldn't be impossible to tame him. But yeah, he was fine in his boarded up hamster heaven.
Yeah, we
which was
boarded hamster heaven up because we were worried because he was so young and so small that he would get through the bars, essentially. So we boarded it up. He had very fancy John Lewis wallpaper. So
he did. But yeah, so, you know, and he was fairly happy for a time. And then, you know, we had him up on Pets for Homes and things as, like, you know, proper ad with, you know, suggested care and stuff. But then due to some unforeseen circumstances, we ended up having to rehome him temporarily with a volunteer up in Durham. But he eventually got his forever home up in Durham with a lovely family. So
he lives in a poor hut.
He does, which is huge for him. And he's
with some lovely sand. Loads of sand.
Loads of sand.
I don't know where Luke is.
And he's very happy. Oh my god, babe! Can we not lose our hamster while we do this?
So he's been rehomed into a poor hut, hasn't he?
In Durham, and he's very happy. But the story of why he ended up in Durham we'll have to tell you another time. So come back for the weather pup story.
And like, subscribe, and turn your notifications on.
Thanks for listening.